Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel where today I'm going to give you an actual bookish video. Today is a Penguin Classics book haul, which then I also decided to combine with the Penguin Classics TBR because I don't have that many on my TBR, so I thought it'd be a nice video sharing how many? 7 books. 4 that I purchased last Tuesday and then 3 that have been on my TBR for a few years now. So let's go with the books that I just purchased because those are the most exciting, right? So the first book I bought was The River Between by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. And so all of these books, I picked them up, read the blurb very quickly, but I'm not super familiar about what the book is about. So I'm kind of have to read the blurb for a few of these. But I know this one, it's set in Kenya and it's about this one remote area where Christianity is starting to be introduced, and it's sort of the push and pull between this new Christianity versus old traditional values. And I think that's gonna be really interesting because it's a topic that I read quite a bit. I've most recently have read about the same sort of situation in Japan, about how when Christianity was introduced to Japan, a few notable people in Japan who were influenced by Christianity. And I have quite a few books, for example, by Shusaku Endo, about this same topic that I'm very much looking forward. So this will be a new setting for me in Kenya, but also exciting. It's a new author and it's a region I don't read that much of because I tend to read mostly Asian and well, actually lately I've been reading a lot of American literature as well. So very exciting. I think this will be really interesting. Next is the Brazilian author Machado de Assis, and I bought the posthumous Memoirs of Brás, Cubas. So Machado de Assis, I was introduced to this author by the booktube channel Better Than Food, and he actually read a different book by this author, and I definitely want to read that one. But the bookstore only had this one, and I was actually very lucky because I've gone to this bookstore many times looking for this author, and they finally had him, but with this one. But this also looks quite good. It feels like it's going to be almost maybe a little gothic, so it's going to be interesting. So once again, this is an author I haven't read, and while I used to read a lot of South American literature because I do speak Spanish, although not as well as I used to since now I speak mostly Japanese. But I did live in Argentina for a little while, and so I've read, I love Mario Vargas Llosa, I love Reverte, I've read some Garcia Marquez, I've read Isabel Allende, but I've never read any Brazilian literature. I've never read anything from Brazil, so this will be once again a new introduction to a new country. And this book, and I'm going to read what it is The Ghost of a Decadent. It's about the ghost of a decadent and disagreeable aristocrat who decides to write his memoir. He dedicates to the worms gnawing at his corpse, and in 160 brief chapters tells of his failed romances and half-hearted political ambitions. So I think this will be really fun, very interesting. And yeah, it's these very short chapters and almost kind of like a diary. So I think this will be a really interesting read, something very different than what I typically read. Next book is an author I actually do know and I have read from before, and that's H.G. Wells' The Invisible Man. So from H.G. Wells, I've read The Island of Dr. Moreau, and the most recently I read was The War of the Worlds, and I like Dr. Moreau better, but this is The Invisible Man. This is his other famous book. And because I only know sort of the what people have told me about it, or not even what have told me about it, what I've heard from different sources. It's a book that's referenced quite a bit, but I actually don't know quite what happens and what is the intrigue behind The Invisible Man other than the fact that he's invisible. But the blurb says that so this man with his face swaddled in bandages is a new guest, and he's at first assumed to be a shy accident victim, but the true reason for his disguise is far more chilling. He has developed a process that has made him invisible and is locked in a struggle to discover the antidote. Forced from the village and driven to murder, he seeks the aid of his old friend Kemp. And then from there, we'll see what happens. So, very excited. H.G. Wells is pretty fun to read. So, it'll be nice to read yet another classic from him. And the next book I bought is a book I've had on my wish list for quite a while, and it was finally at the bookstore, so I picked it up. And that is The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole. And this is very typical Gothic fiction, which over the years I have discovered that I quite love. So far, my favorite being The Monk by Matthew Lewis, which is just extraordinary. I mean, that book is so powerful. And I mean, here, the very first, the quote at the very top of the page of this blurb is, "Do I dream, or are the devils themselves in league against me? Speak, infernal spectre." And when it comes to older English like that, I love it. I just drink it up. I love the drama of Gothic fiction. I love the exaggeration of Gothic fiction. It's so much fun, and it allows you to place yourself in that time and think of yourself when, there wasn't all the distractions we have now. All we had was books, and just think of yourself in a dark room that isn't very well lit due to, electricity not being as effective as it is now. So you just have all this sort of gloomy atmosphere around you. And it's just like, hark, spectre, alas, gasp, and I love it. It's absolutely, Gothic fiction is the easiest to sort of get absorbed into the atmosphere, and I really love it. And this one, I actually have no idea what it's about. I don't remember. I've had it on my wish list for so long. I don't even know what it's about. I just picked it up this last time, in the bookstore when I finally saw it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have it. So, reading the blurb again, so that I can find out what it's about, and so that you can find out what it's about. On the day of his wedding, Conrad, heir to the House of Otranto, is killed in mysterious circumstances. His calculating father, Manfred, fears that his dynasty will now come to an end and determines to marry his son's bride himself, despite the fact that he is already married. But a series of terrifying supernatural omens soon threaten this unlawful union, as the curse placed on Manfred's ancestor, who usurped the lawful Prince of Otranto, begins to unfold. So yeah, I think this is going to be really, really good. I think it'll be really interesting to see the role of the bride, just because of seeing the role of women at that time. So those are the 4 books that I purchased last Tuesday in a nice Penguin Classics book haul. And then I have 3 on my TBR that I've had for a while. And I think you'll notice a difference, and I'll show you right now, between the 2 stacks. 4 books. And 3 books. So I think you can understand why maybe these have been on my TBR for a little bit longer. The first book is John Steinbeck's East of Eden. I have read his Grapes of Wrath, which was beautiful, incredibly lovely. I've read of Mice and Men, which is standard. People love that book. Not too sure why. I mean, it has a sad story to it, and it has an amicable friendship. But in terms of like the power of his writing, that really stands out in the Grapes of Wrath. And in terms of his building an atmosphere, that stands out in Grapes of Wrath. So East of Eden is this other book that everyone's like, you have to read it. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's superb. I have no idea what it's about, except that it's John Steinbeck, which means it's going to be about the American South, and it's going to be about the hardships of the American South. And that's basically all I need to know, because I do enjoy his writing. But to let you know what it is about, read it. Set in the rich farmland of California's Salinas Valley, the sprawling and often brutal novel follows the intertwined destinies of 2 families, the Trasks and the Hamiltons, whose generations helplessly reenact the fall of Adam and Eve and the poisonous rivalry of Cain and Abel. So, this will be interesting. I didn't realize it had such biblical background to it, so that's gonna be really, really good, very interesting. The next book I have on my TBR pile is Wilkie Collins' The Woman in White, which new author to me. I've never read. I believe Wilkie Collins is actually a man, and I've always believed it was a woman, so even that was new to me. So this is also Gothic fiction, which is the reason I picked it up, because as I just mentioned, I really love Gothic fiction. It's just so much fun. So this one I'm actually really, really looking forward to. It's just I need to find the moment where when I find myself reaching for a Gothic fiction again. But The Woman in White famously opens with Walter Hartwright's eerie encounter on a moonlit London road. Engaged as a drawing master to the beautiful Laura Fairley, Walter becomes embroiled in the sinister intrigues of Sir Percival Glyde and his charming friend Count Fosco, who has a taste for white mice, vanilla bonbons, and poison. And that tells me nothing about what the book is about, which is probably why I don't know what the book is about still, even after reading that. But gothic horror, psychological fiction, classic, very famous. I think I'll enjoy this. And it's always nice reading these books without really knowing what they're about, because then you get the utter surprise of the plot. The last book on my TBR list from the Penguin Classics editions is George Eliot's Middlemarch, who, the opposite of Wilkie Collins, I always thought was a man and is actually a woman. So always fascinating to learn these things. This is a book I actually had started reading it earlier this year actually. And then I think I had just read Melmoth the Wanderer, which is a very long book, and I was like, you know what, let's take a little break. I just wasn't feeling it, and I think this is a book I will really, really enjoy, but I just need to find the right moment to read it. So it wasn't that time, but just from the 40 pages that I read, it was the writing was very, very intriguing and a very, very dense kind of in a way, because it's an older style. But I was enjoying it, but I just wasn't in the exact mood to read it at that very moment. So I did put it down. But what is it about? Because I still, even though I read the first 40 pages, I've forgotten. George Eliot's most ambitious novel is a masterly evocation of diverse lives and changing fortunes in a provincial community. Peopling its landscape are Dorothy Brooke, a young idealist whose search for intellectual fulfillment leads her into a disastrous marriage to the pedantic scholar Casaubon, which I had read up to that point. The charming but tactless Dr. Lydgate, whose pioneering medical methods, combined with an imprudent marriage to the spendthrift beauty Rosamond, threatened to undermine his career. And the religious hypocrite Bulstrode, hiding scandalous crimes from his past. As their stories entwine, George Eliot creates a richly nuanced and moving drama. So a lot of names that are actually very difficult to read out loud that I didn't realize. So a lot of characters, we're gonna get so many backstories, and we're gonna see how they intertwine, and we're gonna get a really masterful piece of fiction, I believe. So I'm really looking forward to that. When will I get to it? Hopefully sooner than later, because I haven't actually had this on my TBR for too long. I think it's only been 3 or 4 years, maybe 4 years. So I am still excited about that. So yeah, those are the 7 books that are now on my Penguin Classics TBR pile. They all sound very fascinating. I think I'm gonna start with the Kenyan book, because I really do like that topic of Christianity coming in and sort of phasing out the traditional methods, because for me, I have a lot of opinions about that topic. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!